afternoon. I first want to warn you that we do not have a working mic, so I'm pretty good at projecting. From what it sounds like, Edgar is also good at projecting, but I'll just ask that you guys try to use your listening ears. If we need to repeat anything, we will certainly do that as the program rolls on. Welcome to today's Clean Lakes 101 Science Cafe. I'm Dana Fulton, meteorologist and anchor at WKOW in Wake Up, Wisconsin. Our station is proud to be the media partner for these events. I'd like to welcome you all to the East Side Club. Hopefully you didn't have any ponding or branches to get around in your driveway this morning to make your way here. It is officially summer. Feels like summer. Anyone's heat is like the air is really on in my house. With summer, of course, comes with a lot of time enjoying our lakes every season, but especially during the summer. And maybe, just maybe, when you're next to the water, you might notice a dragonfly or two or several. Today, titled Dragonflies and Damselflies of Dane County, our talk will look at these super fun and beautiful insects and how they are impacted by our waterways. We'll review the difference between dragonflies and damselflies. I tried to ask for a spoiler on that earlier, and Edgar wouldn't give it to me. So we're all going to learn together. We're going to learn what species are actually native to our area and their morphology. We are going to have time, as usual, for a Q&A session at the end. We will get to as many questions as possible. And as always, if we don't have time to get to your question, we can send an email later on and we'll make sure your question does get answered. Before we start today's talk, I want to introduce James Ty to give us a few updates about Clean Lakes Alliance, as well as tell us a little more about today's presenter.
Thank you, Dana. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So people coming in, there's a couple empty chairs. And so if you see people coming in looking for chairs, just line them up this way. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here at the East Side Club. It's a wonderful venue on the lake with the best sunset in the city going over the state capitol. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, National Guardian Life Insurance Company, who also happens to be on the lakes. By the way, when you're coming in, there's some seats up front if you'd like.
Thank you.
Hosting sponsor, the East Side Club. Chris is in their back. Thank you, Chris, for setting up for today. Our supporting sponsor, Johnson Financial Group, Alliant Energy, and Perkins Coie. And our production partners at UW Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies and UW Extension, all that great public work that they do. As Dana said, we're also happy to have WKOW as a media sponsor, and especially Dana for all the extra work that she does to promote environmentals and watershed health. A few quick updates. First of all, we just finished Loop the Lake, and we have at least one person here in their t-shirt. I saw, where were they? Oh, there you are. I want to stand up. Everybody, you wonderful t-shirt. So if you're interested in a t-shirt, we're going to be doing a promotion coming up. You'll get an email. We do have some leftover t-shirts. The No King Day start fit into our attendance, so we hit about 1,300 people, but we're about 200 shy of where we wanted. We did make budget though, so good to go with that. Our annual Surf and Turf event is just a few weeks away on Thursday, July 10th. This is a really cool event at Bergamot. It's a half day of golf and then a half day of fishing. Very unique. And then all the money comes back to the Clean Lakes Alliance. And they also have a nice late afternoon dinner at Christie's Landing. So there's still a few openings. You can sign up on our website. Second, July 101 is on Tuesday, July 22nd, back here at the East Side Club. And we'll be joined by DNR's Gina. We'll be sharing information about cyanobacteria blooms that occur in our lakes. We're also hosting a community fundraiser and volunteer day on July 24th at Dorn Creek. So get out there in the woods. Maybe you can see some dragonflies, and maybe we'll be able to tell the difference between the two. There'll be invasive species throughout the grounds, along with our partners from Madison Parks. Go out there and get your hands dirty and your fingernails dirty and have some fun. Caitlin is here. Caitlin, raise your hand. that's Caitlin, our wonderful programs manager, who organizes our volunteer days, our Clean Boats, Clean Waters, and also all the other great work that she does. Today's talk, we're here to discuss the exciting world of dragonflies and damselflies. Is that right?
Right.
Awesome. I'm not a scientist. With Dr. Edgar Spalding. Dr. Edgar recently retired after 30 years with the UW-Madison Department of Botany. His work focused on plant psychology, excuse me. He always had a love for things, he always had a love for things with wings. Edgar currently serves as the president of the Wisconsin Dragonfly Society. To hear more about dragonflies and damselflies and these organisms are impacting our water, please join me in Dr. Edgar Spalding.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to play a role in your Science 101 series. It's an honor to do something for such a good organization. My goal is today to talk about dragonflies and damselflies that are local, and to show that there is some a connection between the Dragonfly Society and the Clean Lakes Alliance. So the title of my presentation is Dragonflies and Damselflies of Dane County. And I thought we should begin by getting to a level of common understanding about what is a dragonfly. And so I started to draw one. I gave it parts I hope you recognize. Can we all agree there ought to be a head? And that this is where it goes. And what do we call this part? The thorax. And then this part? Brain. So all insects have those three components. A lot have these, the wings, which are attached to the thorax. Then the abdomen in dragonflies and damselflies, and there are no exceptions, is divided into 10 segments. They all have 10 segments, and we start numbering them from the tip here. So if you want to sound like a dragonflyer, you'll say, oh, I noticed S10 is black. That means the segment 10 is black, and that there might be a mark on S7. So that's how we discuss the parts of the dragonfly. And then at the tip of the abdomen, there are something we call claspers, or another word for it are the cerci, that's the plural, cercis, cerci, or the anal appendages. All species will have some structure there at the tip, and that's important for, well, as I'll show, they're used those for the mating process, but they're useful to us dragonflyers as sources of identification traits. Is something wrong with this? What have I left off? Oh yeah, there's no legs. I better put those. Do the wings look right?
No.
There's four. There are always four on every dragonfly and every day. I didn't play the joke in the right order. There are the so there's the basic anatomy of the dragonfly. Now, you're often asked, what is the difference between a dragonfly and a damselfly? And one answer could be not much. And then another answer would be say, well, they're closely related, and all that's true. But if you at a glance want to know what the difference is, like a sort of a rule of thumb, is that the damselflies hold their four wings parallel to the abdomen and not perpendicular to the abdomen. Another feature that's easy to, once you know to look for it, to recognize, is that the eyes are on the sides of the head of the damselfly, whereas the dragonfly's head is mostly eyes. So the eyes are positioned on the side of the head, the wings are held parallel to the abdomen, and a difference or a distinction that I will talk more on a little bit later, is that the four wings of the damselfly are equal to each other. Whereas the dragonfly, the front wings, the forewings, are different in size and shape than the hind wings. So let's go from a, am I blocking? Yes. Okay, what's the? There was we had a technical malfunction that this had to be close. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what else to do. I was supposed to be up there, but the cord that was long didn't work, so we had. Okay, now this is coming. So now let's get a little more specific and say that we're talking about the biological order Odonata. And people who are interested in these kinds of insects will shorten that to odes. And you can say, I went oding, or I looked for odes, or so that is a term you might hear on a field trip. And then that is split into the suborder Zygoptera, which means equal wings, and that's the damselflies. And you see this one is displaying the trait I told you, that they hold their wings parallel to the abdomen. The suborder Anisoptera, which means unequal wings, that's the dragonflies. And if you look closely at these the forewing and the hind wing are different size and shape, and they're held perpendicular to the body. Both of these species are local, both seen around here. Here shows you some of the diversity of shapes and sizes and colors that we see locally. These are all species that you can see around Dane County. This is common. This is relatively common. That one's rare. So now some people might be surprised to know just how many types of dragonflies there are around here. Here is the accepted list of just the damselflies in Dane County. There is a database maintained by the DNR to which enthusiasts report their sightings, and then they're vetted and checked. It's just not that they accept anything, but once it's demonstrated, it'll go onto a county list, and there is a list, an official list for every county in the state. And here are the damselflies from Dane County. There are 42 species, and I don't expect you to read them all, but if there's so many, then they probably must look a lot alike, because you couldn't have 42 very different things, but you. So in that list of 42 are some species that look very much alike. And here comes some of the game of it. If you get interested in this thing, the challenge and the fun, like the Sudoku aspect of it, is solving which of these two it is. So the one on the top is a different species than the one on the bottom. They're in the same genus, Analagma, the American bluets, but the top one is the familiar bluet, and the bottom one is the marsh bluet. And you have to learn what to look for to distinguish them. It has to do with the shape of the anal appendages and a little bit about the shape of that shoulder stripe, the color of the shoulder stripe, etc. So that's the fun part of it. Now, is learning those distinguishing features. If you need a new hobby, there is one. On the dragonfly side in Dane County, we have 55 species on the accepted list. And that's quite a lot. And it doesn't stay the same. Things do get added all the time as we look more and more. It's getting harder to find new things for the regional distribution. That means we're doing a better job of finding the things. But there are still additions and surprises. And a couple of years ago, there was a very big surprise when there was a new one for the state, not just any county. A dragonfly that had not been seen in the state of Wisconsin before was discovered. And it's just uncommon here. It has a normal range. It's just that Wisconsin was on the extreme northern edge of it. It hadn't gotten. It finally made it across the Illinois border. It is called the Eastern Ringtail. And it was discovered by Sean Putz, who's an ode enthusiast. He knows his dragonflies very well, but he was kayaking down Turtle Creek in Rock County. And so my point in saying all that is this isn't the business of just rarefied experts or anything. Anybody can become involved and can add to the base of knowledge about these insects that rely on our local waters. So let me just tell you a little bit of the story of the eastern ringtail discovery in Rock County. That's where it was. And if you zoom in on it, it was this little stretch of Turtle Creek where in Beloit, where it appears the eastern ringtail has taken up residence. And now I want to switch to what does it mean to take up residence and what determines where a dragonfly will live and be successful. And if it's only in this little stretch of Turtle Creek, why isn't it also in the Sugar River? Or what determines where they live? And to address that question, I encourage you to think about the bigger picture and the picture that relates to the mission of the Clean Lakes Alliance. None of these things operates by itself. It's all part of an ecosystem. And in this case, we're going to emphasize the aquatic ecosystem. And what I want to point out now is that the dragonfly is an aquatic insect, full stop. You see them flying in the air, but the real way to think about them is that they are aquatic insects. That is because a large portion of their life cycle, in fact, the largest portion of their life cycle, has them underwater as nymphs. And what I've drawn here is this yellow thing is an egg, and there's an egg, and from that fertilized egg has come a small nymph, almost microscopic, millimeter, sub-millimeter in size, which grows by eating tiny things. And those things eat larger things, and then larger things eat them. And the nymphs grow and grow through approximately 12 stages, typically 12 stages of growth and shedding of their skin until they reach, if they get by this guy, until they reach a stage where they can crawl up out of the water, and out from that nymphal exoskeleton, it splits open, and out from that will come a dragonfly that expands its wings and its abdomen and then flies. So if this part doesn't work right under the water, none of this happens. And if we don't take care of our water, we won't have dragonflies. And here's my first point of connection between this organization and the Wisconsin Dragonfly Society. Now I want to put some time onto that process. So let's start here where we have an adult that's flying. And while it's flying, its main purpose is to eat and to mate. This is the sexual reproduction phase of the dragonfly and damselfly. They are flying at a stage where their goal is to eat and mate and produce fertilized eggs. Now that stage where we see them flying lasts weeks to months, closer to the month side than the week side. But it's not, there won't be one that lives all summer long here. And there's certainly none that live to the next year. So it is weeks, couple of months, where they lay their eggs into the water. The nymph grows through those 12 stages. This process can, in the extreme shortest, be weeks, so that during the same season, one can emerge and fly again. But that's an exception that only a few species do. Typically, this stage will last at least a year and go over the winter. In some of our species, it lasts multiple years. The species called the dragon hunter is a nymph for 5 years under the water. It gets to a size where it's eating other dragonfly nymphs, minnows. It's a voracious predator under the water for 5 years, and then it comes up out and becomes the dragon hunter dragonfly for a few weeks or maybe a couple of months, and hopefully reproduces. So how do they make the fertilized egg? Here is how odonates or odes mate. Here's 2 dragonflies in the so-called wheel formation, and here are 2 damselflies in the wheel. It's easier in this picture, I guess, to talk about it. This is the male. He's holding the back of the female's head. She is positioning her abdomen up until this tip of S10 is in contact with his S2. And what she's doing is picking up a package of sperm. And that then fertilizes the eggs that she has at the tip of her abdomen. You think it hurts, huh? And it makes a heart too in the case. So now she is carrying fertilized eggs. So let's go to that part. How I drew in this first picture the fertilized egg either inserted in a stem or laying on the bottom. And that's because dragonflies and damselflies position their eggs or place their eggs by two different strategies. What we're seeing here is a darner. It's called a lance-tipped darner. And that structure you see here is a sharp ovipositor, and she is piercing a grass stem and placing eggs within the plant tissue. So we call that endophytic, within the plant, oviposition. Whereas other dragonflies and here is also endophytic oviposition, but in this case, it's rotted plant tissue. The male is still holding on to her head. The fertilization has also already occurred, but she is now, with her ovipositor, pushing eggs into this rotted stem here. So endophytic can be living plant tissue or dead rotting plant tissue, but they hide the eggs in plant material. Whereas opposed to these species, which it's harder to show in a picture, I should get a movie of it, is exophytic. They just dab the abdomen into the water and the eggs wash off. And you'll see them bouncing like a pogo stick or a sewing machine. That is a female releasing eggs as she dips into the water with the tip of her abdomen. So then those eggs, like I showed you in the sketch before, grow into nymphs. And I guess it's an acquired taste, but they're handsome. Fishermen love to use these as bait. Apparently they are. Do you know what fishermen refer to these as? Helgamites. The question was, my question, if you didn't hear the answer, helgamites are what many fishermen call dragonfly larvae, nymphs that they're using for bait. And like I said before, they're predaceous underwater, eating each other and anything that moves. They get bigger and bigger. And the thing is, that thing which you might not agree is handsome becomes this gorgeous insect. This is the dragonfly that emerges from this nymph. They are both shadow darners. In late summer, you will see these flying around wetlands in around Dane County. It's not an uncommon, it is a common species. This rock, for example, is at the base of Picnic Point. There is a rock wall where the path begins as you walk out onto Picnic Point. There's a rock wall. That's the rock wall. So if you're there in August or September, watch to see if a shadow darner lands on that rock wall. Last week, I was participating in a Master Naturalists class in Polar Andre State Park, and they asked me and another person to do a dragonfly demonstration. Then we went out to the local pond to look, and as part of their class, and they had very sharp eyes. And one of the students noticed this thing, which wasn't, well, first she thought it was just the shed skin, what we call the exuvia, what's left over after the dragonfly leaves, but it crawled up there. They were able to see this process happen right there because this nymph crawled out, and I took photos periodically. We looked for other things, then came back to see it. So I could see on the photograph what the timing was. This is 34 minutes after we first found it, and then 47 minutes after we first found it. It had split open the back of this. The nymph, what do we call it now? The dragonfly had emerged, but it has not yet expanded. We couldn't stay longer to watch the wings unfold and the abdomen go, but luckily I can show you that process. Here are damselfly nymphs. They look different than dragonfly nymphs. They're longer and more slender, and they have these gills at the end for breathing. That's how they extract oxygen from the water. The damselflies have them, 3 of them sticking out the back. This species is called the great spreadwing. And I had them in my backyard pond. And I took one out when it looked like it was about to emerge. It started crawling out, and I brought it inside and took photographs every 30 seconds. This movie is going to last a minute and a half, but it represents about 75 minutes of real time. And the great spread wing nymph crawled up to the top of the stick I put it on. And then it split the back. And then it counts its toes. And if you're close enough, you can see he's moving his mouth, and I can say he because I can see after this process that it's a male. And then the abdomen slips out. Now the wings, you see, first the wings pump out. They were already formed in something called wing pads in the nymph. They're folded up accordion style, pleated, and it's just pumping them out. They were already there. No growth, no new material was deposited during this. It's pumping them up hydraulically. And then once the wings are finally their length, it does the same with its abdomen. Again, those 10 segments were all preformed inside the nymph. And now they're being extended pneumatically, hydraulically, and there's the proof that it's hydraulic. A little drop of water at the end. Has to harden to a certain extent. This is as we'll talk, well, I'll hold that comment for later. Scientists are amazed about the neural connections that must be happening. This thing has never used its wings before. They're all folded up like a parachute, and yet minutes later it can fly. So somehow the neural connections have to form during that time and know how to beat a wing from an organism that has never known it even had wings. So the thing that becomes is this. The great spread wing. It's our largest damselfly, and this is shows you the first time I lied to you. It is a damselfly, yet it's holding its wings out from its body because there is a group of damselflies called the spread wings that don't do this, they do that. So in biology, there are rules that last that aren't broken sometimes. The great spread wing is a southern and southwestern species that just gets into Wisconsin. It's probably becoming more and more common now. We have it here in Dane County. Old Brick Garden is a very reliable place to find this species later in the summer. That time when the emergence is occurring is a very vulnerable time. That damselfly you saw on the stick was easy prey for a red-winged blackbird, for example. Here shows how tender a damselfly would be just as it's emerged near a pond's edge. It's hardly got any color. It's very soft. It can't fly really. They get picked off. Here is a cedar waxwing holding a dragonfly called her black saddlebags. And when I took the picture of that bird holding the black saddlebags, this is what the edge of the pond looked like. There were wings everywhere. There's a wing, 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 there's a wing. The black saddlebags were emerging en masse from shovel or sink. And the cedar waxwings were in the bushes, just going down and going, going down and going. But it's hard, yeah, it breaks your heart. But realize that for a year underwater, that thing was doing nothing else but killing everything it could see. And it will spend the next little while flying around, eating everything it can see. But someday I would like to see a pile of cedar waxwing wings. That would seem fair, wouldn't it? But I've never seen that. So when it just emerges, we call that the teneral stage. That's a term refers to this bridge period between when it's emerged out of the nymphal skin, yet is not yet a full flying mature adult. And we can recognize that they're duller in color. The wings are shiny. This one's not holding its wings properly for a dragonfly. Its eyes are grayish. So it takes a few hours. So that's the point of I want to make here. Maturation takes hours. It doesn't take them days to get ready. It happens quickly, but there is this period, maybe a day, not days, maybe a day, for them to look more like this. Even this one, which looks all good and is out hunting and things, I can still tell that she's young because I know her eyes will be blue when she's fully mature. So there is a period of hours for them to harden and be able to fly and fend for themselves. And then many hours or days for them to develop their full color, including their eyes. This is what that would look like as a full mature. It's a midland clubtail with its greenish blue eyes, and it's out doing its thing. It's a voracious predator. So the adults fly to find food and mates. And now this one is on its weeks to months, couple of months life. Any questions that I talked pretty fast for a while? Yes.
How many eggs do they deposit?
Hundreds to thousands. The question was, how many eggs do they deposit? And if I said 100, that would be too little. If I said many thousands, that's too much. It's somewhere in the numbers of hundreds to low thousands. Yes.
And as far as number of eggs, you were talking about some putting them inside grass and some just in the water. The ones in the water tend to do more eggs to make up for the fact that they're more vulnerable to predation.
Yes, the question is if they're endophytically depositing, piercing the stem versus exophytic, washing them in the water. I believe that there is a difference in the number of eggs. The species, I know at least in some species that just drop them in the water, they will release so many eggs, you can see them accumulated like a ball at the tip of the abdomen.
Wow.
So, and then they rinse off.
Yeah,
And
that's-
I think it would be hard to do that many thousands sewing them into the stem. Did you have a question?
Just in terms of the eye color, do they all have blue eyes when they mature or a variety?
No, there's a variety of eye color, and telling the different species apart, eye color can be a key. Definitely. Oh my gosh, there's lots of questions. Yes, sir.
When I was a child, we used to refer to things as darning needles.
Yes.
Is it the same thing?
Well, this one is not a darner. I will show you, there's a group of dragonflies that we call the darners, and but it's only a group. I'll take one question, then I think we'll move on to the.
When you were talking about the great winged damselfly.
Yes.
When they first found it, did they think it was a
A dragonfly?
dragonfly? Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. The question is, when they found these big spread wings, especially the great spread wing, did the original people, discoverers, think it was a dragonfly? I can't speak for them. It would have been sorted out in the mid-1700s was when I think people started getting serious about naming them. But it fooled me when I first saw one. Or at least it confused me, let's say. I said, that's too big to be a damselfly. But it's holding its wings out. So I had a moment of confusion. So I would like to think that the other people did too. Let me move on a little bit and we'll stop again. I'm afraid that there's still a few things related to the lake alliance that I want to make sure I get to. I was asked earlier about a dragonfly that had a sky blue abdomen, and I hesitated to say for sure, but I'm guessing it's this one that Darren asked me about. Has a sky blue abdomen and a green thorax. This is a widespread species. It's large. If you see a dragonfly over a field or a pond, and you didn't have to squint to see it. It was pencil size, the size of your index finger, and you thought you saw blue on it. This is the money to bet on that it's this common green darner. You note that it has the green thorax and blue abdomen, and this is a mature male. And this was a mature male. This was Sunday. And I can tell you because of the timestamp on my photos, at a purple martin colony, I watched with my camera for 8 minutes, and I saw them bring in 4 different species of dragonfly. It was just in. Here's another one you will see, the common whitetail. If you see one with a bright white abdomen and a flashy black wing patch, This one perches a lot. That first one I showed you, the common green garter, almost never perches, flies and flies. That's an example of a darter with a long abdomen that people say resembles darning needles. And the wife's, it'll sew your eyelids shut, and there's lots of things spun off of it. Mythologies about dragonflies. So that's the common whitetail. Each wing has a broad black patch and the abdomen is chalky white. But this is the point I want to make, is that's the mature male, but that's the mature female. So the sexes can be different also. That adds to the complexity of identifying them. The wings has 3 dark patches, and she has these white slash marks on the side of the abdomen. Her abdomen will never become white. It's widespread across the state. Every county has reported it. And they begin to appear in May. Their peak is June now, in July. They get uncommon by the late summer. So as we talked about, they've emerged from their nymph here. They're flying around here. Now they're die off, but they will have laid eggs that are going to carry over. That's the life cycle. Now, how do we know all this about these species? Is because the DNR has maintained for decades, a couple of decades, and records even before there was a thing called databases, at this website, the Inventory of Odonata. And all these observations are, although the DNR operates the website, all the data comes from just enthusiasts, amateurs, who report, like birders report to eBird, or dragonfliers report to this website and accumulate records on each species in the state. So that's why we know that the Halloween pennant, for example, should be coming out now. I haven't seen one yet this year. I bet somebody in here has. No, I see. As I looked, I did my identification in the audience, and I know there's experienced dragonfliers here to keep me honest. Anyway, the Halloween pennant is the species on the logo of the Dragonfly Society. It has, I assume it's named after its mixture of Halloween colors and of either black and orange and red in the male and yellow and black in the female. You will see them stand, they're conspicuous because they like to perch on the top of stems, and it blows them in the wind like pennants, I guess, is where they get their name. They always seem to have their wings swept back and bobbing on the tips of grass stems. If you're looking around the edge of the ponds, you will see this bluish one, which is another one that Karen's could have been if it was perched, is the eastern pond hawk. The mature male has a bluish abdomen and a green thorax, whereas the female is completely different color. You'd swear she's a different species, but she's not. Altogether, I told you what we have in Dane County, but in Wisconsin, we have 166 species, which is more than Minnesota, and we have more than Michigan. As to boast, but the serious point to bring that up is it's about the water. And this is where I want to have a little touchstone piece with the Clean Lakes Alliance. It is, this diversity reflects our diversity of water types. When you think about Wisconsin, it's also true of Michigan and Minnesota. And so this isn't the only reason, but Wisconsin has every type of water, fresh water you can imagine, from the huge lakes to everyone has retention ponds and ditches, to fast rocky rivers with riffles and gravel bottoms, to slow moving muddy bottomed rivers, to sandy bottomed rivers, to slow creeks, cattail marshes, fens. Fens and swamps come out as fens. I knew that was wrong. Fens and swamps. We have every. Yeah, sounds like the beginning of a joke. I know. So we have every type of water, and for each of those water types, there has evolved some dragonfly that specializes in it. Now, so that helps explain why we have such diversity of dragonflies in Wisconsin, is because we have numerous water types. But what limits or determines what Dane County has? Well, partly the health of our lakes. And the runoff problem is changing. Yes, we have lots of lakes and streams and things, but they're not all in good shape. So we don't have 166 species in Dane County. What did I say? We had 87 or something when you added the 90, when we added up the dragonflies and damselflies. So that limits what we have, and they are good indicators of the quality of water. Some species need plenty of oxygen in the water for the nymph to grow and develop. Other species aren't so tolerant of that, and they can live in stuff I wouldn't put my foot in, but yet they can manage. And I want to, getting towards the end here, tell a story about, well, Dane County. Those are showing up very well. I put yellow circles around spots that I visit, and I know that my dragonflying colleagues would consider high on the list to visit, like Picnic Point in Madison, the UW Arboretum, Nine Springs over there. I live in Middleton, so I'm always at the ponds like Stricker Pond and Tiedemann Pond, and I try to get to Shoveler's Sink too. And the only place in Dane County where you get to the Wisconsin River, the only bit of Wisconsin River edge that Dane County has is here up near Mazomanie, and access is pretty hard. But I tried to check that out too. But a lot of Dane County isn't regularly getting looked at by ode enthusiasts. We have an ode enthusiast in the Verona area that does a good job. But then I want to tell you the story about this place, Hook Lake. Has anyone ever been there? Great. I hadn't known about it. I'd lived here a long time before I knew about it. Someone said Hook Lake. And it is a sphagnum bog lake that looks like a piece of northern Wisconsin got chopped out and put down in between Oregon and Stoughton area. I don't know if there's another place like it in Dane County or not, but I haven't found it. And when I started hearing about someone who had started looking at dragonflies, you were the first couple of reports, I said, no, those species aren't in Dane County. Where is this Hook Lake? And when I got there, I realized, wow, there should be a bunch of dragonflies that have never been seen in this area before at this spot because of the habitat. There's floating sphagnum bog and sundew parasitic plants and things like that. And so here's just a short, here's a one slide's worth of things that were first found there, and then things that we predicted would be there, and we finally found this year based on that should be there because it's a sphagnum. So like this is tiny little thing is a sphagnum sprite, first found in Dane County a couple weeks ago. This is a belted whiteface. When I saw that, I was, wow, I'm up north. No, I'm not. Here's racket-tailed emeralds. This is a Hudsonian whiteface. And these two are the smallest, and this is the female, and this is the male, elfin skimmer. It is the smallest species of dragonfly in North America. It looks like a little wasp. It'll look like a yellow jacket when it flies away from you. It's half the size of your little finger in length. What's that, an inch and a quarter maybe? And the female is tiger striped. She kind of looks like a wasp. And the male is all dark. He will develop a covering, a whitish cast to that. He'll look whitish with age. So that's interesting. Just another point of sort of touching with Clean Lake Alliance, that the diversity of these insects depends on the type of water we have. The health of the populations depends on the health of the water we have. Whatever progress the Clean Lakes Alliance can make, I want to help you understand why that matters in a broader sense too. So if you get interested in dragonflies, there are field guides to help you get started. I should just change the internet discussion group, just basically Facebook. There's a very active Facebook page. I know not everyone likes Facebook. I don't blame you, but I spend an awful lot of time on it just for this nature stuff. But where people every day are posting pictures for Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Dragonfly Society Facebook page. People are posting pictures, asking for identification help, or just bragging. I found this. either showing off or asking questions or both. And you can check out the Wisconsin Dragonfly Society, or you can just get out there and take pictures with your iPhone, or see if you see one with a blue abdomen fly by and pay attention to what its thorax looked like. There are books available, a fair number. I brought a couple. I lost track of which table. I think maybe we can just put them here on the front table where people want to look at them later. There are field guides, like bird guides, field guides you might be more familiar with, that help you identify the dragonflies. And then there are organizations like the Odonata Survey. That's that DNR database that once you get accustomed to identifying things and feel like adding to the information, you can upload your sightings to that. It'll get vetted. That guy, a very conscientious person, will check to see that what you saw made sense. Dragonfly Society, there's a national-wide Odonata Central, and then there's Bug Guide also, which is useful. There's experts will look at pictures and comments you submit there to help you identify things. And what I wanted to end on was, if we have enough in common, the Dragonfly Society and the Clean Lakes Alliance, we can think of things that we might be able to do together that neither one of us would do separately. So I picked the ugliest 3 pictures I could find. And I still have this mission. I try to find a beautiful insect on the ugliest piece of pond trash I can get. I want someday get the poster child picture. These are, I haven't got it yet. I'm not satisfied with any of these, but a dot-tailed white face on a coffee cup lid. This is an old balloon. It said something on the other side of it, and that's a skimming bluet, and there's a skimming bluet on a disgusting plastic bag. So I want to send the message that clean water helps these beautiful things. That's what I had prepared. I hope that not to answer questions. I don't know if that's the next segment of it, and you'll let me know what time it happens.
We'll
Yes,
let you
please.
go another about 10 minutes. Can you please repeat any of the questions also?
Certainly.
Awesome, thank you.
I was wondering if there's any app for phones that can help you identify.
Last week I said no, and then somebody said, yes, there is, but I don't know what it is. Do you know?
The question was,
Oh.
is there an app to help identify dragonflies?
I'm
Something
looking
that's
for
used for
the
planes.
little one of.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
bird watchers use something called Merlin that will help them identify birds by sight or song. I didn't think there was an equivalent in oats, but I'm told somebody around one of our walks said that there is. Apparently there is something out there.
Picture insect,
Picture insect,
yes, it has all insects, but it doesn't dragonflies.
but that will require you having a photo. Merlin can do things by sound. That's not gonna help. So you will require a photo, which can be a challenge with a phone. Yes.
Is there any data on dragonfly populations, whether they're increasing or decreasing?
That's the question is there data on whether dragonfly populations are increasing or decreasing? And the general answer is no, we just don't have enough observers doing the same thing consistently in the same place. And it's also hard to record numbers on dragonflies. It's easier to count a flock of ducks. It's a lot harder to say how many dragonflies. I'm not trying to be funny. It is just a difficult thing to quantify. So we have anecdotes. Anecdotally, nobody's saying they've seen declines. They see much more year-to-year variability and local variability. And here's why. It brings up a good point. If a particular pond goes dry for whatever reason, then the count will fall to 0 in that spot. But a little while over somewhere else, things may be fine in another. So it's so local and dependent on local conditions that getting an overall survey is more difficult than it is for other organisms. So I think until we get a lot of ode watchers recording a lot of data, we won't know. Yes?
Does the type of dragonfly you see throughout the state, is there any dependence on temperature?
Is there temperature dependence on the type of dragonflies we see? Not really. Their behavior and their activity is temperature dependent. Sort of if you want your chances of seeing dragonflies to be high, you want above 65 degrees and you want sun. So you can be in the best place with lots of species, but cool and cloudy, and you will say there aren't many dragonflies here. So their activity is highly temperature dependent, but where they live in the state is more water type habitat dependent than the temperature. Let's stick you.
You said earlier that the species going from nymph to like an adult or whatever could be anywhere from a short period of time to several years. So does that mean, or are they cyclical like a cicada would be, where you're only gonna see certain species in certain years, or they just going all the time?
I get the question. So if the question is if a life cycle for a particular species is multi-years under the water before it emerges, does that make the population cyclical? And no, they are not synchronized like in a cicada. So it's not the case that every 5 years dragon hunters emerge at once. They're not synchronized that way. Again, maybe it's the variability in the water that, well, I don't know the cause of that, but there's, to my knowledge, there's no synchronicity to these life cycles.
What do they eat?
I forgot to mention that. They eat anything they can, basically. They are voracious predators, but it's almost all insects. When they are nymphs underwater, they'll eat smaller fish. If they're larger than that fish, they'll eat other invertebrates. They'll eat tadpoles once they get bigger, but by and large, they are eating insects underwater. Once they are flying, they're eating almost only insects, including each other. And I have seen even cannibalism, the same species. But it is striking how large a prey they can take down. Yes.
Since they are can go more than 1 year, I'm assuming they must handle pretty cold temperatures, being in the water and even inside the grass.
So how do the nymphs go over winter? They are tough. And people think they actually can freeze solid and not die. So they burrow into the bottom of the mud and they overwinter that way. What's I think a bigger problem for them than the overwinter temperature is losing their water over winter. So if a particular fen dries out, it's really tough. So I've heard that they do their best to burrow, to dig, to stay moist, but that more than temperature is their problem, I think. I think I saw it, and then you. Yes. Yes.
I just looked at, I don't know if I'm on Seek or iNaturalist, but it does look like they have good, or at least a basis for having.
Yeah. So the comment is that there are insect identification apps, and iNaturalist I know does it, but I can tell you iNaturalist gets it wrong a lot. Because, you know, those bluets, blue and black, blue and black, blue and black, the only way to tell them apart is the shape of this cercis, the tip of the abdomen, which you really need a high magnification. So if given a stellar photograph, I believe the app can do it. But I would encourage you to start with the easy to identify ones that you need neither an app nor a microscope to identify, because you can have a lot of fun with dragonflies with those species. And then as you go down or up the curve, get more and more into the details. And I'm not going to be a proponent of apps to do that. I think you just need, sorry, he had his hand up and then you. Yes.
If you were a waterfront property owner per se, is there anything you could do or perhaps avoid to help dragonflies?
Great question. The question is, if you were a waterfront property owner, is there anything you could do or should not do to help dragonflies? One is, please don't meticulously clean all the vegetation off because of the waterfront. They climb up those stems to enclose. And I'm grateful for my City of Middleton Park. One of the ponds I like to visit is Lakeview Park in Middleton, and they don't mow right to the edge. And I've mentioned that to them before. And you will see the dragonflies use that. So that's one thing. Yeah, that's probably my would be my first suggestion. Leave emergent vegetation if you can. Yeah, there was one I skipped over, yes.
Do any dragonflies migrate?
Yes, the question is, do any dragonflies migrate? And we have a few species, a handful of species that, one I mentioned at the beginning, this common green, not the beginning. This one is a famous migrator. This species is the first to arrive in April in Wisconsin, and it does so from further south. Louisiana, Texas, some people even think Mexico perhaps. They come, they're strong flyers. It's a big insect. It flies here and it's mating all the while as it goes up and then laying its eggs. You know, as it goes, when they get to Wisconsin in April, the first day above 65 and sunny, you have a chance of seeing them. That turns out to be April 8th, April 15th or so. And they start laying eggs. Now those eggs get fertilized, they go in the bottom. Now, some of those offspring will migrate back south. But some of them, their larvae, their nymphs will overwinter. So we have sort of, in this particular species, we have some that come in, and in that same species, some of them are overwintered. So we have kind of two different life cycle styles in this species, but one style is the migrant style. And we have maybe a handful of other species that do something similar. Almost every year, the Dragonfly Society gets contacted by the media because along Lake Michigan, there could be huge swarms of these migrating dragonflies that suddenly make an impression on people. And they're calling the TV station and saying, what is going on in my yard? I can't believe it." They call, they say Dragonfly, Wisconsin, and they end up talking to somebody. And I think it's the westerly winds that bring them over to Lake Michigan. Yes,
I just want to say that I saw
such a thing.
them at Summerfest.
Wow.
This year? No, last year.
No, just
Just
like
now.
this weekend. I mean,
Ah.
they're that big,
Wow.
and there was like two flying around,
Okay,
like just right on the coast.
excellent.
I mean, they had to have.
Yes. So the comment was at Summerfest, there were dragonflies flying. So you saw a few, that's normal. What the phenomenon that causes the phones to ring is in the fall when there will be thousands clouds. But I'm very glad you saw some dragonflies yourself, big ones.
Pretty enormous. Yeah.
That would be one of the candidates. Yes, okay. But there's other people who are still, okay.
Do you know, based on the species that are at over gardens, if they have a chance to lay the eggs and emerge before they empty all the ponds?
Yes, good question. So the question is, when you empty ponds like they do at Old Brick, what gets damaged or ruined by that? A lot will not make it because of that process. However, that great spread wing that I showed you, the movie of Emerging, which Old Brick is a good spot for them. It is my belief that their eggs, which this species and other spread wings lay in the branches above the pond, I don't think they drop out until the spring. Because I used to clean my pond because I didn't know better. And I would still get great spread wings. And I started reading on it. You can't read much about it, but they oviposit in twigs above ponds. And then they do a high diving act at some point. And I think because ponds that I know, I've seen ponds like at the Botany Garden get cleaned out, but yet have great spread wings the next year, that the nymph doesn't drop out of the aerial deposit spot until there's water there. That's what I think happens. But I
We have time for one more question, Dr. Spalding.
remains to be proven, but that's what I think. Yeah.
Would you put the slide back up of the organizational context?
So here are the kind of groups that are in the game. Yeah, take a picture of that if you like.
Anyone else? Any other questions? We'll do one more. Go ahead.
Just quick, is this being taped
It is. Yes. Yes.
and could people watch it?
Yes. Yes. It's going to be up on Clean Lakes Alliance YouTube channel by tomorrow morning. So
Okay.
if you want to share this, let other people watch. And on Facebook also, yes, Karen will put it up on Facebook. So, my thing is always to forward it to my parents the next day, to put them in the loop, so. We share. Dr. Spalding, thank you so much for sharing. If you have another question that pops up on the drive home as you're talking with each other, or when you rewatch it, please feel free to email Clean Lakes Alliance, guys. That email address is info@cleanlakesalliance.org. So if you do have another question later on, just send that our way. The entire presentation will be up on YouTube and Facebook tomorrow. Quick plug again, sign up. You can join Surf and Turf. That's our golfing and fishing fundraiser on Thursday, July 10th. I'm not a golfer, so hopefully somebody in this room is and can represent on that side. Our next Clean Lakes 101, just a few weeks away, is going to be July 22nd. It's a Tuesday. We're going to be joined by algal expert Gina LaLiberte, who's going to share a little insight on cyanobacteria blooms that happen in our lakes. More information about all the upcoming events, of course, for Clean Lakes Alliance can be found on the website. Otherwise, stay dry. We still have rain in the forecast for the next few days, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Great.